Hello. In this session, we'll be learning about reproducible analysis. What does that even mean? The benefits of the pros and cons of making our research reproducible. We'll also look back at the repository structure that we have created. Why have we created a repository structure like that? And we'll also look at what are some of the ways in R in which you can make your research reproducible. We'll basically learn a bit about RMarkdown and how we are using RMarkdown files for our analysis. Now, a good place to start is our project website. So let's look at the project website. So I'm currently at the project website. I'll jump directly to the setup section because that is where the whole essence of reproducibility lies in this project. Now the first thing that we are writing here, or the first setup instruction, even when before we are starting the setup, the reason we have this file is because when you are going through this course, you can download or you can basically reproduce whatever we are creating here, or you can do whatever I am showing you how to do. You can do it on your local system. So that basically means you can reproduce the research in your local system. Now that sounds very easy, but if you think about it, there a lot of things can break. When because I'm doing this on my laptop. I might have a different operating system. I might have different versions of the packages that I'm using than what you have. You might have some of the packages, you might not have some of the packages. The data sets that I'm using for the analysis might be out of date, or might not be the ones that I use to create graphs and maps, etc. So a lot of things can break, especially when you are trying to reproduce the results in your local system. But how are we ensuring that? So we'll basically learn about how we ensuring that we can really reduce the number of things that can break when you clone this repository, or when you copy this repository in your local system and do the research yourself. Uh, yeah. So and also think about, especially in large scale research projects, nowadays there's a lot of talk about there are a lot of, like, people cite a lot of research, but then a lot of that research is not reproducible, or a lot of data sets are not available, or data sets are manipulated so that your research results tell a story in a particular way. So there are a lot of things people can do, and to kind of avoid these things and to make sure that people can trust the research we do, it's always important to make sure that we always make our research reproducible. Now we have talked a lot about reproducible as a word, but let's see what that even means. Now I'll give you a few examples of how we are ensuring that this particular research is made reproducible. So first, we are making sure that all the list of packages that I have installed on my system, I make sure that that the list is very explicit. You can go ahead, install those packages. Now you can use this function which you see here, or you can just install these packages one by one. That doesn't matter, but you should have these packages if you have to reproduce this research. The other thing, you should definitely have R and R Studio with you, and only after that you'll be able to install the packages. The other important thing is the data set. Now, so let me go back to the overview page, and let me go back to the process in which we are. The process to sorry A step-by-step guide to data processing. Now here we are. So how we are making sure that you can reproduce, or you have the exact same version of the data sets that I have, by making sure that the raw data is available, or the raw data is cited here. The code that is used to process that raw data is also cited here, and then the final data set is also part of this package. So these are some of the steps in which some of the basic steps in which you can make your research reproducible. So again, summarizing, you should have the latest code. You should combine the code with the latest data that you're using. You should have all the steps that you take to reach or to process the data from the raw data. All of that code should be made available, so that anyone who wants to verify your research can do that. Now, the second thing I would like to mention here is the structure of the repository. This is also very important because documentation plays a very important role, especially when it comes to reproducibility. Now, you see here that we are following a specific structure in this project. Now, there's a directory, or you can call it a folder, for analysis. there is a folder for code, there's a folder for data, there's a folder for docs, and there's a folder for output. Now I'm not going into detail about what these folders mean. A lot of it is very self-explanatory, but I would like to share a bit about how we created, or why we are following this structure. So we are using something that is a new package that we have in R, which is called the workflowr. Now this workflowr package is so basically what this helps you do. So this is the website of the workflowr package, and the links are available in the project website. But it will help you structure your project in a way. Now you can follow the exact procedure that is mentioned in this document. So you declare it as, so you basically install the package, you call the library, you just configure the package with your details, and then you start a project, which is as simple as workflow_start. This is a function that is part of the package. Now as you start the project, or when you will execute this function, it will create all the files that you see here. It will create all the files that you see here in this particular hierarchy, and that is the structure. So workflowr package is used to provide a project a structure. So that is one benefit of using this package. The other benefit of using this package is combining the data, code, and the analysis in a very structured format. So for example, I'm again going back to the repo. If you see that the code, if you remember the constituency data processing code that we wrote for the analysis, now that code is part of this folder, which is the create constituency file.r. The analysis code that we will see going forward is part of the analysis folder. All the data sets that we are using in the repository are part of the data folder, and they are structured as either process data sets or raw data sets. And there's also a readme file which will help you understand what each data set is about. So it also helps you structure the types of files you have in a particular way, also helps you document the files. So I would personally recommend for all your projects, or for some of your projects, you should definitely try using the workflowr package. Now we have looked at the data processing code. We also talked about a bit about reproducibility, but we haven't yet talked about the analysis of the data that we have downloaded, or the data that we have processed. Now if you see here, I'll just quickly show you what is it inside the analysis folder. Now you see here that you have all the RMD files. Now what is this RMD file? Now you must have, or some of you must have heard about Markdown, which is again a format in which you write your documents. Similarly, in R you have something called as RMarkdown. Now RMarkdown is a proprietary format, or is used inside of R, so you can't use RMarkdown anywhere. You will have to use a software that understands RMarkdown, so you can't just use any other text editor. Though you can write it anywhere, but only editors that are able to process RMarkdown will be able to generate that output of that RMarkdown document. So in this case, we are using RMarkdown inside of RStudio. So RStudio understands RMarkdown and will be able to process the results of an RMarkdown file. So now we talked about reproducibility, where we said that it's very important to have latest data sets, to have latest code at one place. But it's also important for anyone who is trying to reproduce your results to see okay, what is the analysis, and how that analysis is using a particular piece of data, or how a particular piece of code is processing a data set. Now this is where RMarkdown files are really useful, because so let me just open an RMarkdown file here. So let me just open this cast-wise constituencies.rmd, and we will go in the upcoming sessions. We'll understand the analysis of it, but for here I just want to introduce you to how the RMarkdown files are structured. So you see that RMarkdown is a combination of data, code, and text. Or text is basically the story you are trying to tell with your analysis. You are combining storytelling and you are combining data processing and data analysis in one file, and that is the objective of using RMarkdown files for data analysis. So if you see, I have let me just zoom in a bit here. So I have the introduction section. Now this is how so imagine I'm writing a Word document. I start with the introduction, and then I move to some storytelling aspect of it, which is I start with an analysis. Now this piece which starts with this particular line, now there is an R code here. Now the the objective here is to combine the storytelling with the R code. Now this R code is used to generate a map. Now let me just open an R Studio document and open this file, which is here. Now you can see the file. Now the file looks very similar to any other R script. It's not different. So I'm starting with an introduction. Now whenever I have to start a code, I will, so there's a particular format of inserting a code chunk in the R markdown file, which we will look. And then you write the code. The code will so let's say in this case the code is used to create a map or create a chart. So whenever you execute this file, so the map or the chart will be inserted in the place of a code. So the final output, let me just show you how the final output looks like. So this, I'm again going back to the our project website and then opening the page for which is generated using this code, which is caste wise constituencies. So let me just open this link number 2, the relationship between caste and seat distribution by political parties. So this page you see here with a like an index of sorts and a map, a table, everything, a graph which is listed here. Now all of this has been generated from the R markdown file. So that is the benefit of R markdown. You don't have to create a separate file for data processing, a separate file for data analysis, and a separate file for visualization. Everything is at one place. Now, before we go, dive deeper into the analysis bit, let me first show you, how do we create any R markdown file. And the other thing I would like to, again going back to the workflowr packages, how R markdown files are created in the workflowr package. But first let's look at how you create any R markdown file inside RStudio. So you go to file, you click on new file and you select R markdown. Now this will open this box and you can give a title to this file. So in this case, let me just write sample, and author, I can write my name, or you can also leave this blank. And then you select the format of the file. In this case, I would like to create a web page, so the HTML file, but this can also help you create a PDF file, Word file, and then there are a lot of other templates that you can create. Like you can also create a business card, you can create your resume. Like R markdown will give you a lot of options. So I'm going back to the document, I'm clicking on OK. Now this will, as you see here, this opens an untitled file. So I still have to save the file, but this is a basic format of the file. Now let me first also save the file somewhere so I can execute it. So I've created this session demo folder. I'll save it here. So sample, and this, if I click on enter, this will be saved as sample.rmd, which is R markdown. So that is the extension of this file. Now you see there is a YAML metadata which is here. YAML stands for yet another markup language. It's a way in which you assign these metadata tags to all R markdown documents, and then you just start coding or just writing your story. So what I'm doing is I'm just deleting everything here. Or first let me do one thing. Let me just process this document. So how to process an R markdown document? So there is a knit button which you see here. If I just click on knit, it will start the processing, and if you see the console, the processing has already started, and within seconds your R markdown document will be created. Now this page or this window that you see, this is the name of my file, which is sample. This is the author's name, the date, and then you have everything that this is just created right out of the box. We haven't even written a line of code here. Alright, so this is how simple it is to work with R markdown. I'm closing this file. What I'm doing here is I'm kind of modifying this file a bit. So let's say I'll delete everything. I'll delete everything which is here because I don't need it. Similarly, I can delete author and date. Now output is very important because we need an HTML document. Similarly, I'll write instead of sample, we'll write my first R markdown notebook, and I will Now I told you how to create an R chunk that you can do by so the shortcut is Control Alt I, but you can also not use the shortcut, and if you have to insert a code chunk, what you can do is you can click here and you can select R. That will select insert an R chunk. Now the other benefit of using R Markdown documents is you don't have to just rely on R. You can write Python inside of R. You can write D3, which is a data visualization library inside of R. Similarly, you can write SQL inside of R. So that really brings it really helps you combine the benefits of all these different languages in just one document, which is like really, really powerful. So let's say I create this document, I give this chunk, you call it in R Markdown terms, a title. In this case, it's sample R code. And let me just use a sample dataset here. So let me just write head and I'll use iris. So what this will do is this will just print out the head. And also let me just explain you. So let's say, so first let me just process this file and see what happens. So I click on knit again, and this will process the file, and the output is created here, which will be visible in this window. Now you see that when I write head iris, the title has changed. Head iris is the code and this is the output. But let's say I don't have to see the code in my notebook, because a lot of times, especially when you are publishing an HTML document, you don't want users to see the code. For the code, they can go to GitHub or they can go anywhere else. Sometimes it gets confusing to mix code and GitHub, especially on a web page. So let's say if I have to not show this code, I'll click on this link or the settings button which is here, and I will click on show output only, and then I will click on apply. And when I again run this book, I save it and I run this again, or I knit this again, this is again getting processed, and now you see that I will just get the output and not the code. So now the code is not visible. So these are some of the settings that you can play with, and the way you can update or change the output of how your files look at. Another important concept that we need to know is, now you remember we created created an R Markdown file inside the session demo folder. So now you see there are two files created. One is the sample.rmarkdown file, which is the file that we had created, which is this file. And the other file which automatically got generated when we knit this document is the .html file. Now this HTML file will be used by your browsers to display the web page. Now, if you remember, I told you that, or I mentioned that there's one interesting thing that the workflowr package does, which is, now again, let me go back to our analysis file. Now this was our analysis file, which was the cast wise constituencies. Now you see that the code is here, the story is here, and let me also go back to the analysis file, and here you won't see any HTML files, because there is only .r markdown files which are here. So where is the HTML file? So all the HTML file will go inside output. So all the HTML files that you see here will go inside the output directory, and they will be visible here. So whenever I knit this file, all the HTML files will be visible here. I'm sorry, not the output, not the output file, but the docs folder. So all the HTML files you see, so this create castwise constituency.html, which I'm just hovering over, now it's right here. So this is, the benefit of using a package like workflowr is you don't have to worry about moving your files here and there. As soon as you create a workflowr pack, and it's very simple. So let's say so again, going back to the page where you can follow everything with respect to workflowr. So let's say this is the directory. I can just write one piece of code, which is workflow_open, and to create a new analysis file. So all my analysis file are inside the analysis folder, and let's say I write x.rmd or sample_1.rmd. So what this will do is this will automatically create a sample_1 file inside the analysis folder. So now you see that sample_1 has been created. And let's say if I hello, this is from the workflowr package. Now if I run this file, now let me just delete this code and save this. And if I knit this document, or let me just do, or okay, let me just knit this document. Now you see that some of the metadata is different here from the normal R Markdown file because we are using a package, and we are not directly using R Markdown. We are using a package that is using R Markdown. So that is why the structure is a bit different. So the R Markdown file that we have just created is now getting published. So you will see the output here, and let me just close this for a bit, and let me just go back to the docs folder, and here you will see that sample_1.html has been created, and it's not present inside the analysis folder. So that is what, that is what we wanted. So now quickly summarizing what all we learned in this session. The first thing we learned was what do we even mean by reproducible research? What are the benefits? What are some of the pros and cons of making our own research reproducible? We then looked at how R Markdown, or how some of the features within the R language helps us in making our own research reproducible. How we can use R Markdown to bring in, or to use multiple languages inside of R. And then we also use how the workflowr package helps us in structuring our repositories and making sure that all our analysis is reproducible and well documented. So in the upcoming sessions, we'll analyze this data set further. So please stay tuned. Thank you.